When Marni reached out to me to say that she was evacuating her family, that she was on Cyprus, having been able to get on an evacuation flight, and that she was coming to the States, when she said she was hoping to raise awareness and resources for victims and survivors of the atrocities committed by Hamas, I immediately invited her to join us here at Betham. I'll let Marni share her story. I'm just incredibly grateful to share the pulpit with my friend and this amazing human being. So please help me welcome Marni Mandell to the Bima.
I'm not sure I was ready for this. I thought I was, but I think the enormity when you're standing in front of people on a stage changes things in some very real way. This morning I was sitting in Daniel and Miriam's kitchen, and my Apple Watch went off. I have an app that tells me when sirens go off in Tel Aviv, and you would think that if I wasn't in Tel Aviv, I don't need this app. Maybe I should silence it. But I can't, because there's a guilt involved in not being there, that in some way I need to still be there. And this morning I woke up and I've been writing posts on Facebook. They're not very long. You're welcome to join me if you want to see them. They're like 2 sentences, and usually, honestly, it's a reflection of my guilt. We're Jewish. We like guilt. We like to masochize ourselves, right? This morning's guilt post was, it feels like walking through a gray haze while the rest of the world thinks it's a normal day. And I feel guilty for even existing in this vanilla space. Every morning, I wake up and I think about the children. I think about the children in captivity. I think about the children who have buried parents, and I think about the children whose parents have buried them in the last 2 weeks. My grandfather taught me that when I give a speech, it's not about me. It's about you. It's about the people listening. What do you want? What do you need to hear? And what are you driven to believe and do after I finish speaking? I'm going to give you the Cliff Notes version right now, in case you have to go to the bathroom or something like that. The Cliff Notes version is, you are the hero to my story. You are the hero to our collective story of what will happen when we finally have a sense of calm. I don't know whether it's going to be peace. I don't know what it is. I'm not going to call it that. I am not a political person. But the day after when we have to reckon with the fact that we have hundreds of children who no longer have parents, the fact that we have thousands of people whose lives have been destroyed, you will be the hero. How many of you remember where you were exactly 2 weeks ago? It wasn't exactly, because you guys are 7 hours behind, but 2 weeks ago on October 7th. Do you remember that? Does anybody, by a show of hands, do you remember? Do you remember hearing about this? So it was 2 weeks ago that the reality started pouring in. That morning, we awoke to sirens in Tel Aviv. And truthfully, I didn't think much of it after the first siren, because we sometimes get them. It's a weird state of normalcy we live in, or abnormalcy. We gathered the twins and we went into the safe room. They were confused, we were confused, but it didn't seem to be anything out of the normal. In fact, we didn't even tell the twins why we were going into the safe room. It's my husband and my office, so, they thought it was fun. We're usually kicking them out of that room. My friend was texting me after the first siren. She had actually just gotten Bruno Mars tickets for that night for free. I bring this up because that was still the state of our mindset, that it was normal, right? And she was wondering whether or not we were going to see Bruno Mars. I rather brazenly and quite frankly embarrassingly said, "I'm sure we will. We don't let these things bother us." It turns out that siren would have been the most minor inconvenience that we would have experienced. That we would have been able to ignore the heart pounding I had become used to as a result of the booms of Iron Dome, right? That lingering PTSD that I still have from living in Jerusalem during the Second Intifada. Every time Iron Dome booms, the sirens aren't even the bad part. The booms are, and the booms happen. They happen whether it is Iron Dome, and they happen whether they hit. And that particular morning, a missile hit 10 meters from my friends in North Tel Aviv. And to give you some idea of what that means, that's a 25-minute walk from my apartment. It hit. It did not get shattered in the sky by Iron Dome. It hit, and it is central Tel Aviv. It hit the garden next to their house. Okay. Again, I'm going to ask you to be the hero to the story. But let the numbers speak for themselves. 200 Israelis, more, have been kidnapped. More than 500 children already, we know, have been orphaned in some way. 1,400 Israelis have been killed, murdered. 4,629 as of last night Israelis have been injured. 66,900 rockets have been fired from Gaza. But let me break that down to you in stories of real people. 1 week before this event was my birthday. It was a great day. I had a cake. It was full of sprinkles, right? Huge, white, full of sprinkles cake. My kids love sprinkles. If they could live in sprinkles, they would. And we had way too much cake on our hands, and so we went to my friend's Dina, the same friends who a week later had a missile land next to them. And we were sharing this cake, and she was talking about the night before, which was Sukkot. And she was sitting in her friend's sukkah in Jerusalem, and they were enjoying Sukkot, and there was a young man there that she was going on and on about. In fact, her exact words were, "This is the kind of guy we hope Mia, my daughter, marries one day." His name is Hirsch. And Hirsch is the son of Jonathan and Rachel Poland. And he was taken while he was at the Nova Festival 1 week later. So we have children, and she was young, okay? And in all of that, we also have women and their entire families, like Shoshan Han. And she is the founder of the NGO Fair Planet that distributes seeds across Africa to combat global hunger. And at the same time, she would be driving Gazans to hospitals for their procedures and their cancer treatments. These are good people. It's the story of Ariel Zohar, age 12, from Nir Oz. He's the only survivor of his family. He went out for a run that Shabbat morning, a run which saved his life. His mother, father, and 2 sisters were murdered by Hamas terrorists, and his bar mitzvah is in just 1 week. Ariel had one request from the Zakah volunteers. Zakah is the group that goes in after a terror attack to clean up and make sure that we have honored our people. He asked them if they would go into his home and retrieve his father's tefillin. Now, Ariel had already been given a brand new pair of tefillin for his bar mitzvah, but his father's tefillin was special. They had been given to his father by his grandfather, who survived the Holocaust as the sole member of his family. The grandfather said to him, "When I was 14, my parents were murdered. I survived, and today I have a grandson. They have done this to you at the age of 12. You will also survive, and you will have grandchildren in Eretz Israel. These children are now my children, and these children are now your children. It is our duty to rebuild their worlds. It is our duty to lift them up, the memories of their parents, and be their blessings. Every day, I feel like my life is an endless series of comparisons and reasons that I have to feel guilt. If you connect with me on Facebook, you'll see my daily "it feels like" posts, chronicling this endless guilt I have for still having my children and having them still having me. Just to give you a few, it's the feeling of my daughter's small hand on my arm as she says, "I miss Tel Aviv," that causes a pain in my heart. It's the feeling like the crushing guilt of my kid's heartbeat in our morning cuddle when there are moms who don't get a morning hug anymore. It's the feeling of my daughter's small hand on my arm. Oh, I already did that one. It's being frustrated with my twins' temper tantrums, and then the overwhelming guilt because at least they are here and alive. Every day, every single day I wake up, it's a reminder that I was barely asleep, living a terrible nightmare that is real. And they weren't my children, but now they are. Dan said I could, but I didn't have to, teach a bit of Torah. I love you, but I had a sort of visceral reaction to that. I didn't want anything to do with Torah, I'll be honest. This is a horrible theological moment. I don't want Torah to do anything with what's going on. And so what I thought I would do is end this actually with something that wasn't Jewish, with a pastor who was my childhood hero. And that pastor was, if you are all familiar, I'm sure many of you, if you've grown up over the age of 25, with Mr. Rogers. I love Mr. Rogers, right? Mr. Rogers said, "When I was a boy and I would see scary things in the news, my mother would say to me, 'Look for the helpers. You will always find people who are helping.'" And that is true. Right now, there has never been more help, more solidarity, more giving. It is an amazing thing. And I wanted this to end there and say, be a helper for the rest of our kids' lives. Again, you are the hero to our story. I felt like I could let a pastor have another religion have the final word, so that I didn't have to wrestle with the ultimate theological question: how did God let this happen? But then reality hit me in the face, and when I got a text from a friend, she said, "Tomorrow is Parshat Noach, and we should be at yours having dinner." Why? You see, every year for Parshat Noach, I host a Shabbat dinner, famously called Rainbow Shabbat. It was established by my friend Marla Ann Bennett, who Daniel just shared with you was one of the victims of the terrorist bombing at Hebrew University. On Rainbow Shabbat, everybody brings a dish in a different color of the rainbow, and I do my best to make the table look like an ark with animals and water and all sorts of crazy things, right? It's everything Marla was. She emanated with light and love and laughter and joy, and that was what I wanted to recreate every year for my children, for my friends' children. And because I fled Tel Aviv, I am not around to host it. Again, guilt. But I was jolted into reality that this is Rainbow Shabbat, and this is Parshat Noach. And as we all know, this Shabbat, we read about God destroying the world, and Noach building a boat to save himself, his family, and all of his animals. And when the rain subsided, a rainbow came out representing God's covenant to his people to never let this happen again. Hence, Rainbow Shabbat. But what are rainbows? It is light shining through billions of droplets of water that are refracted and turns it into 7 brilliant shades that make up a rainbow. At its core, this is Rainbow Shabbat, and I want you to be the rainbow. I want you to create the millions of drops of reflected light and be a part of the covenant to all of those children, that their lives will never be destroyed again. I want you to join me in making this pledge and making it possible for these children, our children, to rebuild their lives and have an opportunity that the world can provide. I, alongside dozens of Israeli high-tech entrepreneurs and dedicated volunteers and partners from around the world, are building the Israeli Children's Fund to shape the futures of Israeli child survivors who have lost a parent to the Hamas terror attack or whose parent is being held hostage. We aim to help heal the wounds of the past and allow them to grow and fulfill their potential. I urge you today to be the hero of this story, our collective story, and join me and join us in the building of the Israeli Children's Fund. You have a sheet here that was passed out. You can get it back there, and if you want, you can come to me afterwards. It gives you how you can become a part of the story by donation. If you want to become more involved, I urge you, come up to me, get involved with me. We need all the help we can get, and that's what we're going to do. We are going to build this for our children. Let's all be a part of the rainbow and part of the covenant on behalf of our children. For the parents that have been lost, let's be their thousands of aunts and uncles that they know that they can help rebuild. Let's be the hero of their story. Thank you, and Shabbat Shalom.